Well, this spring's Quebec election is marked by several controversial issues, including the fate of federalism, sovereignty again, and the future of Canada. For a closer look, we're joined by Peter Stockland in our studio and Alain Pelletier in Montreal. Peter is the publisher of Convivian magazine, which examines faith in public life. He's the former editor of the Montreal Gazette. And Alain is a commentator with French broadcaster RDS. Welcome both of you to Context.
Hello, Lorna.
Great to have you. Peter, this election was supposed to be about jobs and the economy, but Pierre Pelletier and the PQ seem to be trying to manage an election platform that's calling for independence. Canadians are wondering, uh-oh, are we going here again?
You know, I actually don't think so, because as soon as that conversation began in earnest on the hustings on the campaign trail, Madame Marois actually physically pushed Monsieur Pelletier at one point back, and as a signal to get him.
It's a front-page photo in the country.
Right, to get him to stop talking about it, because the minute it began again, the poll numbers started going down. So. In terms of it as an election issue, clearly the PQ wants to keep it under the rug. At the same time, that conversation has never really gone away.
Okay, Alain, it's a wonder that Quebecers are willing to vote at all, given the revelations of the Charbonneau Commission. That public inquiry looking into collusion and corruption in government. It could easily shake people's trust in democracy. How is that playing out in the province?
Well, it's a good point, Lorna. I really think that there's been so many things that have been happening recently in the province of Quebec, Lac Mégantic, l'Île Verte, and all that corruption actually with the mayors. They've lost a little bit to the trust of the people. Sometimes, you know, when I listen to the elections, it sounds a little bit like reality TV. At the same time, I really feel that one day they'll talk about sovereignty, the next day they say no, the same people will say exactly the opposite. We don't want to talk about it, because in the end, that's not what the people want. But yes, I think they've lost the trust of the people in many, many ways.
Okay. I want to talk about the Charter of Values. And Peter, Bill 60, which among other things limits the wearing of religious symbols in the public sector, is still on the table. Peter, what are the implications of this charter?
Actually, Lorna, the implications got even scarier when Madame Marois said on a campaign stop that, in fact, she's perfectly happy, if they get a majority government, for the charter to not so much be extended to the private sector, but she would have no objection to that. This has been the fear all along, Lorna, that this really wasn't about state neutrality, that in fact it was about the imposition of a very, very aggressive form of secularism on society at large.
You wrote in an article I read of yours in the Globe and Mail that the cross is not a government-approved decoration. What do you think its symbolism of the cross should mean in Quebec?
I think the symbolism of the cross in Quebec should be the same as the symbolism of the cross for everywhere. It's the sign of our Lord died and risen for our salvation. That's the meaning of the symbol of the it's not just a symbol. That's the meaning of the cross. In Quebec, unfortunately, for too large a segment of the population, at least too large in my opinion, it is a decoration. It's a symbol emptied of any kind of meaning, but pointing to a nostalgia, a sense of the past, something that we used to be, but really aren't anymore, except in a vague kind of cultural way.
Have you both seen the effect of that in the life of Quebec? And Alain, I'm going to start with you. You know, you look at some of the social challenges in your province. You have 4 of the 5 poorest cities in Canada are in Quebec. You do grapple with the highest suicide rate, and I want to quote Premier Bernard Landry, the former premier, whose own family was affected by suicide. He said, "We have been trying to build an ethical and moral code that is not linked to religion, and we haven't found a good way to do that. This isn't what directly provokes a suicide, but it can create a context that makes life more difficult." So to both of you, are social ills compounded by making the cross only a symbol?
I believe that the province of Quebec especially has become more secular than ever. I lived for 10 years in Toronto, in Ontario. I saw a difference there when you talked about your faith. Even though people didn't share necessarily that faith, they were accepting. Here, most of the time, I feel that if I say that I am a Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, that I'm being mocked a little bit more, and I feel that I should be able to wear my cross and to be proud of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be very sexy right now to say that you're a Christian, and that makes me very, very sad, and I think it's a huge mistake that our leaders would be leading us in the other direction, the wrong one.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing your insights with us from your seat as Montrealers today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Well, okay, now, being a multi-talented man, let's go to Sheldon Neal, and you've got a question for our viewers at home.
That is right, Lorna. And as you look at the pending election in Quebec, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing voters there? We want to hear from you. Give us a call, tweet us, Facebook us. Your voice is really going to help bring this conversation forward.
In a moment, I speak to Canada's youngest bishop in one of Canada's oldest cities about ways that God and faith are woven through the issues in Quebec. That's coming up.